spectacular interview. Not mine, but a stunning one, I promise. And now, to begin with, meet a wonderful guy, Nat Fridman, who does street interviews. In fact, he does them in the most tense and unfriendly places, at protest rallies, at riots. Of course, riots organized for the Democratic Party of the United States of America. He's already known all over the country there, and his photo is apparently being circulated among the mercenaries of political riots. And don't talk to this one. They say when he approaches, people back away from him. That means those he tries to talk to. But NATO is also conducting an investigation. He's looking for photos of those who act as organizers and leaders of all these riots. I don't know what they're called, provocations, strikes. Although this isn't a strike, of course. And he finds some surprisingly interesting
materials. I just want to interview one person. People kind of can't talk to me. Would you like to talk to me?
So, speakers, I'll give you no.
Your opinion was voiced about the strike last night.
What's your job today? Well, I'm on guard duty now, so I can't.
I'm on guard duty today. It's not my job to answer questions today, says the young man with an Arab kefi on his shoulders. There are people over there, over there, who are the ones answering questions today. Interesting, isn't it? Someone appointed him as a guard. Guarding from what? Guarding from whom? From the Zionists, I think. And someone appointed them, those over there and those there, to answer questions. But why am I here? I won't tell you.
Which organization are you in? So who can get through? Or is someone from these participants in the organization? The next day,
After
after the United States struck Iran's nuclear facilities, I went to a pro-Iranian protest in New York to ask people what they thought about the strike. In the end, I exposed several paid protesters and NGOs that promote lawlessness across the country. This is my biggest expose yet, on video. Welcome back to Nat Fridman's show.
He's young. He looks just like those who protest against American bombings, against the Iranian nuclear program. In other words, against destroying the bombs that Iranians swear every day they'll use to destroy us.
Question: what do you think about yesterday's strike?
What are your thoughts on this?
Wait, this is extremely important.
Avoid any attempts to engage in conversation with him. Do not give in to provocations and do not enter into a dialogue, as this may lead to undesirable consequences or distract from more important matters.
Tasks. So, someone doesn't come himself, but sends this woman to tell the protesters standing with the flag not to talk to NATO. Is he a Zionist? The protester asks. Yes, the girl replies and runs away. By the way, do you know what is written on the flag that the dark-skinned protester is holding in the middle of America? Just so it's clear, it says in Arabic, there is only one God, and his name is Allah.
I want to address directly the woman who tried to stop the interview. The man you're protecting from the interview is holding a flag with an inscription in Arabic. There is no God but Allah.
And who are these people? Are they for Iran, or are they just against America? Well, and against the Zionists, of course.
This person is not just a professional protester, but something much worse. Watch closely. Here he is leading a protest right in front of the White House. Then he appears again in New York at the head of a column, and again at the Trump building on Wall Street. This is where things take a truly creepy turn. Here he is, standing next to a man wearing an Islamic Resistance Movement armband. This made me dig deeper, especially because he could pose a threat to Americans.
Someone is training, funding, and organizing either those who hate America or those who don't care what, or who they're protesting against. Put the money on the table and we'll protest for anything you want.
Here he is speaking at a vigil in honor of Nasrallah, the former Secretary General of Hezbollah, the same proxy group that killed more than 600 American soldiers in Iraq. In fact, this person might actually be responsible for the health of some New York residents right now, because I found him among the members of the group Medical Workers for Palestine. And again, he was wearing a jacket. This is part of the New York state government, the people responsible for conducting medical tests. Would you want this person to have anything to do with your health care?
So he also works at New York City Hall and gets a good salary and benefits paid for by us, the taxpayers. But it seems he also hates us and has made it his main occupation in life to lie and intimidate you. But he's not allowed to talk to journalists, only to shout from a script and carry banners. He's not mature enough to handle journalists yet.
You think that... What is it? You know what? You do realize this proves our point. Yeah, it's a show. So now there are two?
Two people.
Well, here we go again. Another paid protester came to disrupt my interview. Although this time he's not just one of the workers, he's a manager. His name is David Chang. He's the Chief Executive Officer of People's Forum, the company responsible for organizing these
pro-Iranian
protests. We know this because they literally told us this themselves at the previous rally. What is the best way for people to join the protest organization?
In New York, the People's Forum is a great place to get involved in politics. Meet people from your community and come together.
A good place for political organizing, says the protest participant, is the People's Forum, that is, the People's Assembly. There, they'll work with you, prepare you, and introduce you to others.
Here he is shouting to stop NATO.
Here he is shouting to stop California. Here he is shouting to stop California, which was
a representative
of the Columbia University organization.
Spread your protests, which you should do after you confirm that you were already safe at the protest.
This is what you're allowed to do once you've proven yourself.
David has now appeared in promotional materials.
For the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the fight for Palestine never stops.
As the commissions show, they protested just a day after October 7th.
If you look at the PO Plus forum on Glassdoor, it seems that managers there make from $60,000 to $90,000 a year.
Of course, that's not a lot, but there are also sandwiches, Coca-Cola, and sometimes bonuses for good deeds. And what kind of good deeds? Threw a rock at a shop window, or let's say scratched the side of a car with a brick, hit a windshield, or struck an elderly person with a stick. And other positive deeds that please the authorities in Iran, Qatar, or the Democratic Party of the United States. Here's another interesting statement you need to hear. Why should Israel and Jews be destroyed? But why is that?
In the photo on the far right is Manolo Santos, Executive Director of People's Forum. Honestly, I'm not sure there's enough psychotherapy in the world for Manolo. Because, as he said, when we finally deliver the final blow and destroy Israel, when the state of Israel is completely wiped off the map from history, that will be the most important blow we can strike against capitalism. That's what they don't like, that others have.
Have a lot, while they have little or nothing at all. And their minds are a complete, hopeless mess without a single thought.
While you're picking up your kids from school, he's out protesting. When you're going to work, he's being arrested. When you're having lunch, he's taking over fax juice. He undoubtedly has one of the most extensive paid protester portfolios I've ever seen.
And who pays? Where does the money come from? Out of the woods or something? Obviously. Money for considerable salaries, rent, printing, and preparing equipment.
And now the question is, who finances the deposits for these paid agitators? His name is Neville Roy Singham, a billionaire and self-proclaimed socialist. Singham and his wife Jody Evans, who is the co-founder of CodePink, have donated more than $20 million to the People's Forum. Singham funneled this money through the philanthropy fund. And after some time hiding the source of the funds, the People's Forum eventually made a statement. A few years ago, we met Roy Singham, a Marxist comrade who sold his company and donated most of his fortune to non-profit organizations focused on political education, culture, and internationalism.
And here's the man.
Who happened to end up at this demonstration?
I had no idea how many anti-Semites were there. Honestly, I just didn't know. I used to be a Democrat. I was in the same fog as many others. October 7th was a wake-up call. How did people react? It was a wake-up call. I had never seen such anti-Semitism. You were a Democrat until...
October 7th.
Or when did you change your position? Yes, it happened when Bernie Sanders used the word chaotic. At first, he supported Israel. Bernie's first words were in support of Israel's right to self-defense. When he started repeating the party's standard phrases, I realized that the party was not what I thought it was. I learned a lot about anti-Semitism, even among Jews. I learned a lot about Jewish self-hatred. I learned about Bernie Sanders. I learned about Nitchervi Carter. Who are these people really? It was a real revelation.
What do you think about yesterday?
I am so grateful. I am so proud to be an American, and I am so grateful to Donald Trump. I am so grateful to Donald Trump. I was against it, not...
Here, thank God, a breath of fresh air in this stinking dump of trash. The most important bill of the last 2 or 3 generations is, of course, the bill that Trump calls the Big Beautiful Bill. Why is it so important? And why am I happy about its passing, even though it's not final yet? I'll explain now in this emergency Sunday session of the Senate. What does all this mean? Now, Congress and the Senate have to agree on which version because they discuss slightly different ones. They're essentially the same, but with additions or removals in each place. Now they need to do what's called deciding which version is final, the left one, the right one, or the one they agree on somewhere in the middle. So the text needs to be brought to its final version, that's what I'm trying to say, and then so they need to vote for the final version in both places, and then the president will be able to sign it. What's in this bill that Trump and his team are calling it historic? The first thing is the tax breaks that Trump introduced in the 45th are becoming permanent. Over 10 years, Americans will have to give $4 trillion less of their stolen money to the Treasury. That means less theft, and that's a good thing. Second, an increase in spending on border security, including clearing the country of those who have broken American law. About illegal immigration, that's also a plus. The law provides sort of purging. I was trying to find the word, yes, cleansing. Purging means of social services from fraud and a huge amount of unnecessary expenses and mistakes. The main criticism of the law is that along with the bathwater, you can throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning that it from cuts to social spending, millions of poor people could suffer, as the Democrats say, and the United States budget deficit and national debt will not only fail to decrease, but will actually increase by 3 to 4 trillion over 10 years. Well, let's talk about this because, well, if some experts are saying something, we need to take it seriously and try to find out what they based it on, whether their facts are correct, and whether their reasoning was logical, so to speak. We were told that inflation in 2025 would be huge. Biden had 7, it even reached 9%, and it will be huge, it even reached 9%, and it will be huge. But Trump said, what nonsense. And it's true, inflation has been tamed. That is, in my opinion, it's either the lowest or one of the lowest in the last 50 or 60 years. We were told that the real incomes of the working class would fall. Well, for the producers, those who actually make things with their hands, the real incomes of the working class have grown over the past 5 months. Trump's, as they haven't grown for 3 generations. This event hasn't occurred in 60 to 75 years, or 3 generations, with a generation spanning 20 to 25 years, according to various definitions. We were told that Trump's customs duties, Trump's trade wars would lead to higher prices and shortages of goods. Trump said, "Why are you lying?" And once again, he turned out to be right. The prices are the same, and every month we collect $30 billion at customs. And we're just getting started, as the same Donald J. Trump said. In other words, the experts are always yelling, and then they go quiet because every time it turns out they're just experts, not experts. They're always lying. False threats, they're always adding fuel to the fire. They've already cried wolf, wolf, wolf 20 times, and we don't react anymore. Maybe the wolf will actually come. But it has nothing to do with their so-called calculations and predictions. It won't have anything to do with it. Why exactly? At this point, we're supposed to believe them even though they've lied to us 20 times already. Well, okay. And now the rutabaga on the cake. I should immediately mention that I have participated in the programs of Mikhail Katzin, who hosts his show, Where Are You From in Europe? Since in his native Ukraine he could have been drafted into the army. How he crossed the border and left his homeland, I naturally do not know. I initially assumed he still resided in Odessa. For some reason, that's what I concluded. That's why, like many others, I responded to his request to talk about the United States and about the view of Ukraine from the United States. It seemed to me that any word delivered to Ukrainians, especially at the beginning of the war, was very important. So I didn't really like what was happening there, but that's just my own opinion. Some people liked it, some didn't. I refused to come for the interview, especially since I didn't like Mikhail's sycophancy toward the current president of Ukraine. He kept referring to Volodymyr Alexandrovich exclusively, while other prime ministers and leaders were clearly not addressed with the same respect. Mikhail is well-educated and has opinions on a variety of issues, but somehow I didn't like that he might agree with your arguments on air, and then easily repeat what he just acknowledged as deception or simply as a hoax and provocation, but nevertheless as if none of this ever happened. For me, a principled position is important. If you're just doing a straightforward interview, just asking questions, you might not express that position. But Mikhail always speaks up, well, about 3 to 5 times more than a regular interviewer. And he kind of takes sides in arguments, even in the way he asks questions, he approaches it that way. He might digress and tell a story about something, but that's beside the point. Now I'll ask my question, and it doesn't matter at all whether what he told matches my, let's say, view of reality or not. Well, I've been talking about this for a long time, it's his right. But if you've been told that you're, well, let's say, selling something that's a deception, and you admitted it, then, well, it's customary not to repeat the same deception again, right? So the reason I started talking about this is that Mikhail hit rock bottom and invited a seriously flawed minor official from the Democratic Party to the show in a city somewhere near Milwaukee named Yuri Rashkin. And before, I didn't know what that was, but now I do. So I had my own story too. Many years ago in my program to help young bloggers, I appeared on dozens, maybe even dozens and a half of different bloggers' channels, just trying to support them somehow. And I appeared on his channel too. But once on RTVA, where they invited Yuri as my supposed opponent, he, having nothing to answer, suddenly started shouting on air. During my speech, I won't let him speak. I won't let him speak. I still won't let him speak. And, well, this went on for quite a while. And the editorial staff, from my point of view, was pleased with how the two American Jews were kind of bickering with each other. Well, that's why I didn't argue. I just decided that I wouldn't deal with this anymore. Well, in general, so to speak, the picture is clear. Let's move on to the epical conversation between Mikhail from Europe, Mikhail the European, and Rashkin the American.
Hello, dear friends, viewers of the YouTube channel. I have a guest on my channel for the first time. I hope not the last.
Yuri Rashkin is a well-known American journalist, author of the YouTube channel Rashkin Report, politician, and supporter of the Democratic Party.
Hello, Yuri.
Hello, Mikhail. Didn't it seem to you that they had already started arguing before the interview?
Yuri, this is our first interview with you, and I thought for a long time about how to start it because the first interview is always difficult.
I would phrase the question as follows.
In your opinion, what is the difference between the reset that President Trump has de facto declared in relations with Russia?
Even though he doesn't use that exact term, and the reset that took place under President Obama and President Medvedev in Russia?
Honestly, I didn't understand the question, but I think we're talking about, let's say, the building of relations between Putin and Obama and Putin and Trump. Well,
all previous presidents put the interests of the United States first. But this president puts his own priorities first, the priorities of his own family, and good relations with Vladimir Putin. So expecting this from him is, so to speak, after him. Hillary Clinton looks like a superhero because at least she didn't just bow down to Putin the way Trump does.
So according to what Yuri said, Trump is defending and promoting the interests of his own family. Well, that's like a Cosa Nostra, not America. And unlike Hillary, Trump bows down to Putin. I hope this is about politics, not sex. He bowed down while Hillary didn't. That was the point.
And that's sad, I think, especially in Ukraine, because in Ukraine there were high hopes for Trump that he would come and bring order. I explained that it's not like that. People wanted to believe because they didn't like Biden.
Amazingly, there are already two lies in the very first segment. The first one is not Trump will come and restore order, but apparently Biden. And second, Rashkin has never read similar Ukrainian press, nor watched Ukrainian television, nor listened to their bloggers, because of course it's exactly the opposite of what he said. So he's either making unverified claims or lying. I'm leaning toward the latter.
But it gets even crazier when they try to turn America into something like that. When we try to solve Russia's problems, the ones Russia supposedly can't solve. Only Iran, for example, has the Houthis, or however they're called. And Russia, it turns out, has the United States. That is the United States of America.
Under Trump, solves Russian problems just like the Houthis do for Iran, or like North Korea does for China. Did you notice that too? Did you also notice that the United States always does whatever the Kremlin orders? Like it bombs Iran on the Kremlin's orders, imposes tariffs on China, and reconciles India with Pakistan. Clearly entirely at Putin's request.
So I think that Trump actually has a very clear understanding that he doesn't know how to make deals. He's terrible at making deals, and when he does make deals, they're, so to speak, even worse.
Here I have to stop the stream of unconsciousness from Rashkin and Katzin, who is nodding along with a seriously concerned face to his senior comrade. Let's think about where Rashkin gets his information from. Well, MSNBC, American Broadcasting Company, Polytech there, and especially, of course. And so it's cable news network that I want to check regarding their assessment of Trump's first 5 months in office. Will our Rushkin-Skaya match or not? Because Rushkin should be getting all this from there, right? I apologize in advance to those who saw this segment in my previous video, but I had to show it to you one more time, right now.
Or I would say, since we've had President Trump, the strikes on Ukraine, the number of drones has tripled. So it seems to me that maybe the results are just obvious here.
Don't you think that the source of information in Rushkin's translation started saying the exact opposite of what he actually said?
He can't help anyone but himself. And why are you interrupting me? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course, yes. Go ahead, I'm not interrupting you. Yes, I'm listening to you.
Then you and that's it. What and what does that actually mean?
Statements by President Trump from March 2022, when the large-scale Russian aggression began. They were there.
Yes, he called it that.
Putin a genius?
There were different quotes, including...
Pay attention to Morta and Soroshkin. Disgusting, right? Or is it just me? One is very dissatisfied, that's Katzin, and the other is just showing contempt for the interviewer.
Including Trump in March of 22 called for giving Ukraine all the necessary weapons.
Later, by the way, he repeated this quote.
If he were president.
Yes, if he were president. So then we saw how Trump's public position evolved to a certain extent, at least. The future is yet to be seen.
Don't you think that here, of course, since we're dealing with electoral democracy in America...
The American public's attitude towards Russian aggression in Ukraine has shifted due to fatigue.
Frankly speaking, there are a lot of internal problems in America that have distracted, let's say, voters from both the Republican and Democratic parties.
You're welcome.
Here, Mikhail is trying his best to suck up. By the way, I don't really understand why.
Well, you talk too much with Burov, who has no idea what's going on in this country.
Wow, you talk too much with Borov, who has been living in California for a decade already. But from Rashkin's point of view, he has no idea what's going on in this country. Well, I don't know. Right now I'm even defending Borovoy. But why do you have to smear someone with crap? Well, actually, I get it, because if you're covered in crap yourself, then whoever you touch will end up
smeared with crap. He'll ruin our economy. Now he's fighting with immigrants, even though this is a country of immigrants, and he's destroying relationships with our allies. What were we talking about?
Oops, that's from the fullness of thought. Not the body, but the thought itself.
And his evolution is like this. He was for Putin, and he still is for Putin. If you are evolving in your views, congratulations. It's about time. Because he never did anything. He promised that he would make a deal with Putin, that only he could make a deal with Putin. How much of an idiot do you have to be to think that's a good thing? So I think it's pretty clear here. Trump was for Putin, and he still is for Putin. And if you decide to deceive yourself, then
how much of an idiot do you have to be to try to make a deal? How much of an idiot do you have to be to try to make a deal?
You're talking about President Trump being for Putin. Aside from emotions, are there any facts that would indicate that Trump is for Putin?
Well, finally, we're going to hear some facts. I want to hear facts, too, not just chatter. Now the Democratic Party figure Rashkin will explain everything.
if you don't understand this yet, just wait. To avoid waiting, shift your perspective. Trump has never supported Ukraine. He thinks Ukraine is just about gas and that you need to be destroyed. That's why he doesn't speak out every time you're bombed, just like he doesn't speak out every time Gaza is bombed. Of course not.
The first fact is that Trump doesn't speak out every time Ukraine is bombed. Trump doesn't speak out every time there's bombing.
So if you want to think that you're so important that Trump will appreciate you now, because that's what he always said. No, he wants to feed you to Putin. He always wanted to feed you to Putin.
And Mikhail nods to that. Yes, that's a fact. Trump wants to feed us to Putin.
The facts suggest he's working for Putin. What's the current situation with NATO? Is this someone's idea, Putin's plan, or did he decide to go after Greenland? Who told him that? Who planted that idea in his head?
So the fact that Trump forced Europe to contribute more money to NATO to defend against Russia, that was Putin's idea. And taking Greenland so that Russia and China wouldn't control the ocean passage through the ice, that was also something Putin threw to him like a bone to a dog.
Not to stand up for Ukraine, not for Israel either. It wouldn't be bad to keep quiet, but to fight for Mexico and bring American troops out onto the streets of American cities, isn't that a Putin idea?
Here's another 100% fact. Mudra Rashkin knows as a fact that Putin secretly gave Trump the order to deploy the National Guard in Los Angeles to suppress rioters paid by the Democratic Party. And Putin told him to punish Mexico for the drugs coming across its border. By the way, if that's Putin, then thank you, Big Putin. I would even say a huge thank you. And also the facts.
Where does Trump get his money from? He has money because of Russian real estate, because of Russian money that he sold, real estate in Florida and beyond. It's 2 + 2, 4. This is an old story. Read a book by Yuri Felshtinsky, not just one.
As soon as you read a book by Yuri Felshtinsky, your eyes will be open to the world.
Do you really have to ask such questions at all?
You're an adult.
You're saying that President Trump destroyed, if I remember correctly, relations with NATO, so that's your position.
Relations with what?
With NATO, the North Atlantic Alliance.
The way he behaved, the way NATO behaved. Do you think he will protect? Do you think he will step in if Article 5 is needed?
I think Rashkin failed to address the question once more.
Well, we can't compare Trump to Hitler. Do you understand that this comparison doesn't hold up here?
Sorry?
How can you say we can't compare them? That's crazy.
It's impossible to avoid comparisons right now.
It's just like the 1930s here in the United States.
Excuse me, but comparing Trump to Hitler, you do realize that's just crude, right?
You're telling me a Jew to calm down and not get nervous?
No, well, I'm Jewish too. I'm telling you this as one Jew to another.
I still think it's not really appropriate to compare President Trump to Hitler, simply because Hitler committed so many crimes.
No, it's just that we know where Hitler's policies and criminal actions led, and to compare that to President Trump. So just watch where it leads.
Trump, he's just getting started.
I'm thrilled. How about you? Unfortunately, Kotzen isn't very good at interviewing. A good professional would squeeze out all the carrot juice right now, but there's already enough crap coming out of Rashka.
The country has big problems because people are afraid. The economy is stagnant. International relations are falling apart. Tourists aren't coming here, and we're not traveling as tourists either. Well, some people still travel. I love to travel, and I will keep traveling. But now, people are generally afraid to cross the border because a Danish tourist wasn't allowed into the country, or a Norwegian one, just because he had a meme of the bald John David Vance. Like the one on the phone. This isn't the country I came to 35 years ago. It's a completely different country now, and people don't recognize it either. Because people are used to human rights being respected here. And when we see immigration police breaking into homes, smashing car windows, how is that any different from Hitler's brown shirts?
Maybe something is happening in Milwaukee that we don't know about. Even, I think they have a different kind of state, one that we just can't imagine exists. This is no different from the brown flower people.
Hitler. Fascism takes different forms in every country, such as in Germany, Italy, Russia, and America. This explains why it manifests uniquely in each nation. But we have our own nuances, and it happens very quickly. People didn't think it would happen so fast, shutting down what is right. But nevertheless, this is what we are witnessing.
While there are no real elections in Russia, as it's all a complete fiction, in America elections do take place.
The only thing that can, as I understand it, fix this, yes, you say, you
understand. That's why you have this kind of understanding.
About what?
Anything. For example, elections. In Russia. No, in America in general.
No, I was just finish your question. In Russia, we understand that elections are not real and just a fiction, but in America...
And here, correct me if I'm wrong. Still, in my opinion, there are elections.
The only way President Trump can influence the will of the people is by endorsing a particular candidate or not. That is, by using his approval.
Naive? Well, you are naive.
Someone
told you this such nonsense.
Correct me if I'm mistaken. Wow, how rude. Well, that's what Mikhail deserves. Yeah, when you bring 100 kilos of crap to the show, it stinks.
Biden had a team that implemented great policies, lowered inflation, and the economy is in excellent shape. Trump was handed such a sweet deal that now he's trying, and that's exactly the problem. It's uncertain if Trump or Nadezhda received it. If Trump had been given a terrible country in a terrible state, it would be worth discussing. But he was given a country in excellent condition, and after that, he can't keep it in such excellent condition. Well, it's clear where the responsibility lies. Who is responsible for this? Because before Trump, everything was fine. Trump comes, and now we have chaos.
Well, let's stop this nonsense here. Before Trump, everything was fine. These are so-called Russian speakers. And then a real journalist put on a Make America Great Again cap and reported. Again, I apologize to those who saw this piece yesterday or the day before, but I really want to repeat it. Well, not everything, of course, just a little bit.
Trump achieved that every NATO country spends 5% of its gross domestic product on defense, which amounts to billions and billions of dollars.
So Trump didn't destroy NATO, as Rashkin said, but according to the Secretary General, he revived the alliance.
Rwanda and Congo signed a historic peace agreement, putting an end to yet another war.
Trump told both countries that he would stop buying their products and stop sending aid. And what if the years-long war doesn't end? And the war, as if by the wave of a magic wand, just stopped. Oh, he remembered. He did it on Putin's orders.
The 100%, P500, and NASDAQ indices have reached a historic high.
The stock exchanges soared, not fell. As Comrade Rashkin reported,
the deal with China has been signed. Several major food companies have joined the growing list of those who have pledged to remove toxic artificial dyes from American food products. Economic experts say that Trump has completely won on the issue of tariffs, and according to government data, more than $30 billion a month is now coming in. And President Trump says we're just getting started, period. Social Security payments showed the largest monthly decrease in history. That's good because it means they've eliminated waste, fraud, and abuse. And as I told you last night, big eggs from Dogi. He was specifically hired as a special government official to identify remaining fraud in the welfare system and strengthen it. For American retirees, this is huge. General Electric Air announced that it is moving its manufacturing from China back to Kentucky, United States of America.
In my opinion, everything is just as cable news networks said, and not at all like Rashkin was telling Mikhail and his viewers. In my opinion, Rashkin is even more disgusting than Dmitry Bykov. I'm not even talking about Gordon Chandrovich and other such types. They're practically virgins compared to this disgusting bore. Yeah, all right. Disgusting, arrogant, self-absorbed, spiteful, half-educated, pseudo-intellectual, and kind of dumb, too. Many years ago, he had at least some charisma, but now he's gotten wider and just full of songs. And by the way, it's not clear why. With dropouts? Actually, that does happen with dropouts. And he acts like an oracle, from the word oracle. Acts like an oracle. But gentlemen, I warn you, I should have warned you at the beginning, of course. Don't watch this video at night. That's what I was just showing about Rashkin. It might make you sick. I apologize if I didn't warn you in time. Until next time. Subtitles created by